What's going on YouTube? Today's video, I'm gonna talk about how to get big legs, right? Now, some of the principles I'm gonna talk about apply to all muscle groups. I'm specifically talking about leg training just because I happen to have a little bit bigger legs and people ask me about how to get big legs. In particular, someone from my gym, shout out to Marco, has asked me a couple times. So this video will do more justice to that topic than I can do, in like a over the phone or in like a 2-minute, conversation. So the first thing they need to understand is that genetics play a big role. I have a propensity to build muscle mass like easily. My grandpa was a bodybuilder. I've got relatives. I have a 50-year-old male relative whose test levels are in the like 750 nanograms per deciliter range, and he's that's with all of his lifestyle factors not like completely dialed in. And then obviously I look the way I do, a little bit chunky right now, but I have a decent amount of muscle mass everywhere, but obviously particularly in my legs. On top of that, I have relatively short femurs and kind of a longer torso. Not like extreme in either direction, but having shorter femurs means that, if my muscle lengths are the same as someone else with longer femurs, they're gonna look like they have, shorter muscles that attach not as close to the knee or as I do, which is gonna make their muscles look less huge, and it's gonna look like it's taking up less space on their thigh, right? And then also my muscles do attach, or my insertions are pretty good. Like they go all the way down to my knee, basically. Like there's not like a lot of space between my knee and the end of my muscle bellies. So genetics obviously play a big role in that. I was born to have pretty large looking legs, especially the quads. The second most important thing that you need to understand is that I've been lifting weights for 9 years. You know what I mean? Like officially 9 years as of this week or last week. So during that time, I've lifted consistently. I've maybe taken off a grand total of 3 weeks altogether during that time. Mostly I've trained legs twice a week. During the start of my lifting career, I only trained legs once a week, but very high volume. And, I train legs hard. So when you take almost a decade of consistent training for any muscle group, really, it's difficult to not see, a lot of growth, right, over that time. I started lifting weights when I was 14. I'm now 23. When I first started, I didn't necessarily notice like extreme explosive growth in my quads or any particular body part, but I've just been doing it for almost 10 years, and I've I've gained maybe 80 plus pounds over that time. So maybe even more. I started off like 125. Oh my God, I've gained 100 pounds since I started lifting weights. I was 125 when I started lifting weights. I'm now 225. So there you go. 10 years of consistent hard training. That is hard to beat, right? Or 9 years, whatever. So those are the most important things. You need to remember that genetics play a large role, and that consistent effort over time makes a really big difference, right? So, for more specifics, right? I know I talked about doing legs twice a week. When I first started lifting weights, I trained legs once a week. I did, a push-pull leg split where I only lifted 3 days a week total. But I believe I was doing, by the time that I was getting ready to switch to 2 times a week for legs, I think that I was doing like 8 sets of squats, followed by 4 sets of leg press. So we're already at 12 weekly quad sets, and then like another 3 or 4 sets of leg extensions, and then of course hamstring and glute and calf exercises. But again, we're looking at 15, 16 sets of quads per week, and that was just training once a week, or just training legs once a week. When I transitioned to doing legs twice a week, I can't remember the exactly what my split looked like. We're talking 8 years ago or more at this point. But I'm guessing that I was somewhere in the ballpark of 20 sets per week for quads, and was training pretty hard. And then I was also running track. So the leg volume in general was pretty freaking high, right? As I, learned more about training and stuff, I did pull back on the volume, especially since I was running track and all that. But point being, I did, pretty high volume for quite a while. And my frequency has actually been north of twice a week before. I've done 3 leg days a week. I've done 4 leg days a week. I've done squat every day at one point. So volume and frequency are important. I don't think, for most people, doing more than 2 leg sessions per week is probably never going to be necessary. You probably will never have to do that to experience pretty much maxed out leg growth. But that is something that I've done. I have done 3 or 4 days a week of leg training. I've done leg training every day before, but again, not something that I would say is recommended or anything. Twice a week for most people is as much as needed. Let's see here. Exercises. People ask me about exercises all the time. You have to understand, I'm a powerlifter, which means that there's kind of a built-in requirement that I squat, right? I have to squat because that's one of the lifts that I compete in. I don't necessarily think that everyone needs to barbell back squat. In fact, I would say that once you are no longer a beginner, it's probably not ideal for quad growth. Doing high bar squat when you're first getting started, just learning how to move, how to lift weights. High bar squats are excellent. They will definitely grow your quads. Low bar squats will absolutely as well. The point being that those are things that can definitely build your quads up. However, doing something like a hack squat or a really deep leg press, something that has less axial load, less spinal load, but still really gets a lot of tension in your quads and allows you to move, relatively heavy weight in the 5 to 20 rep range, anywhere in between or even more, to be honest. What's more important though than exercise selection I shouldn't say that. Exercise selection is important. Doing leg extensions versus hack squats, there's a difference there. You should include both if you're trying to maximize quad growth. You should do hack squats and you should do leg extensions, or a hack squat type movement and a leg extension type movement. to fully maximize quad growth. But more important than that, I would say, is your intent and your and pushing close to failure, right? So if you're doing hack squat sets and you're leaving 8 reps in the tank every set, it's not really ideal for muscle growth. If you're adding weight and reps every week and eventually you get to a point where you're doing, you've got 1 rep left in reserve, like, you will obviously see growth. And honestly, like, even doing something easy like doing 8 reps in reserve, as long as you are still adding weight over time or adding reps over time, even if you just consistently stay in like a super easy 5 reps in reserve, whatever, you will still see muscle growth, but you will never see your best muscle growth, right? Like, it's just not going to be anywhere near as good as getting close to failure. So 3, 2, or 1 or 0 reps in reserve. I've been training hard since I started lifting weights, but like the last 3 years of powerlifting, I've been training particularly hard since I'm no longer running. My main focus is not something outside of the gym, whereas before, like when I was running, I would train much harder on the track than I would in the gym, because the main focus was the track, not the gym. The gym was secondary to that. Whereas now, powerlifting, the main goal is to be better in the gym. So my training has definitely been harder in the gym. For myself, I do sets that are, RP5, RP6 for squats. But typically, if you were to take the average is going to be north of RP6. I think, anyway. I'd have to, do a real analysis to give you the true answer. But then I also do back downs and accessory work. So as an example, yesterday I trained legs. I did squat, and the quad accessory that I did that day was hack squat. And I do 2 sets at RP8. It sometimes ends up being more like RP9, and the last set, the 3rd set, I do until I fail. So 0 reps left in reserve. And not that I necessarily am saying that's what everyone should do, especially if you're a beginner. I don't think that you really need to be pushing to failure if you're just getting into the gym. But I do think you should be trying to push hard and getting a feel for what hard training feels like. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Like, really and truly just making sure that you're training hard consistently over a long period of time. Putting more emphasis on squat movements, such as maybe high bar squat, or more likely hack squat or a deep leg press, is going to definitely elicit more muscle growth. It's going to have it's going to be very stimulative. It also is going to be more fatiguing than doing like a leg extension. However, typically, I think for most individuals, you will see that the stimulus to fatigue ratio is higher on those big compound movements, just because the stimulus is so great, and even though the fatigue is also greater than leg extensions, it just is outdone by how stimulative those sets are. So overall, the biggest thing is it takes time. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. Getting large muscles, any large muscles, takes time. If this video was about back, I'd be telling you very similar things. Compound movements are going to be more important than isolation movements for your back, but also it's just going to take time. Like, also, eating in a calorie surplus for a long period of time, actually making sure to gain weight rather than trying to just maintain weight or even lose weight. That's, you know, that's another big thing. Like, a lot of people are really worried about gaining weight. They just want to stay the same size. They want to see their abs year round. And that's fine. Trying to stay lean is great. I'm not saying that you should blob up like I did, but if you're afraid of gaining weight, you're afraid of your abs starting to fade a little bit, chances are you're never going to have, you know, the big muscles that you want. Like, I wouldn't have the, you know, 27-inch quads that I do if I wasn't, or if I was afraid of gaining weight. You know, when I first started lifting weights, I couldn't even tell you how big around they were. Maybe, you know, 18 or, yeah, maybe 18 inches around. And if I didn't gain any weight, they would still be that size. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's all I've got to say about getting big legs. That's what's worked for me. Hopefully some of that will apply to you. Last week's training, let's see, for squat, yeah, this is all week 1. So I believe I did a 445 set of 4 on squat. Deadlifts, oh man, I'm blanking really hard right now. Like 475 maybe, oh, whatever. Something like that. Something, yeah, I think something like that. I guess you guys will see in the clip. It's double for this week. And then for bench, did a single with 335, hoping to do another 5-pound PR this block, hopefully end with 395. And yeah, so if you guys like this video, if you thought it was helpful in any way, please give me a thumbs up, or leave a comment, or if it wasn't helpful, you know, also leave me a comment. Tell me what I could have done better. Anyway, I catch you guys in the next one.